Good afternoon, everybody. The time is now 3 o'clock. We will be starting with our Game Changer series, our November Game Changer series. And this afternoon, we have the privilege of having Professor Bernardo, who is a professor of management science at Temple University. And is based in Italy. And he's going to be sharing with us insights on the theme, Procurement 4.0 and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the opportunities and challenges of a digital world. Before I hand over to Professor Bernardo, I'd just like to quickly go through some housekeeping rules, which would be really to firstly inform you that we are recording the session. And if you are interested in the recording, you can get hold of us at the AISCA office. And that also we will ask that you place yourself on mute whilst Prof is doing his presentation, but he's going to have quite an interactive presentation. So if you have questions, you can then take yourself off mute, ask your question, and then place yourself back on mute. You can also use the chat box to, if you've got any questions you'd like to ask, or maybe you're not able to take yourself off mute, you can also use the chat box. We'll be monitoring that. And we'll ask the questions to Prof as they come in on the chat box as well. With that, I actually did not introduce myself. I'm Ayanda, and I'm your host for the Game Changer series. I'm with the AISCA as their VP for Southern Africa. And I know that we have been together all year. So welcome again to the old people who've been with us for a while and to the new people. I'm going to hand over and ask Prof to also introduce himself and then take over in terms of the presentation, quite simply because we are doing almost like a speed dating game changer today, where we'll be sticking to 1 hour and we'll be completing our session at 4 o'clock. So we are doing what I'm calling speed dating. And with that, Prof Bernardo, I hand over to you to introduce your topic and introduce yourself for the afternoon. And thank you once again for being part of this Game Changer series. Over to you, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me introduce quickly myself. Okay, why it's not moving? Okay, my name is Bernardo Nicoletti, and I'm a professor at a couple of universities. One of them is at Temple University. Temple University is an American university in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They do have a campus here in Rome, and there I teach right now operation management. I'm also working with another Italian university whose name is Tor Vergata, and there I'm supporting doing the course of procurement management. I'm a professor, I teach, but I'm also a consultant. I worked all around the world in many countries. I've been in South Africa, but I've not been, but for tourism, and it was a wonderful country. At the bottom of this slide, you can see my phone number. I'm also in WhatsApp, which is useful to have cheap calls. And you can find also my email address. As has been said, we have just 1 hour, but after this call, I mean, you might in the following days to have some specific question or some subject that on which you want to go a little bit deeper, call me, chat with me using WhatsApp, or send me an email, and I will try to answer as soon as possible. on this respect, let me show you a slide which normally is shown at the end of the presentation. Instead, I prefer to send it to show it at the very beginning of the presentation. If you have a question, stop me anytime. I can assure you that I'm not at all bothered by question. On the contrary, I think this is a presentation, but it's also a conversation, because I have my experience, you have your experience. To exchange experience is the target of this call, not just present a subject, but as I said before, stop me anytime. By the way, stop me anytime also if my English is not clear. As you can imagine, being of Italian origin, English is my second language, and sometimes I'm not, either I'm not clear, or I get so much involved in the subject that I start to talk too fast or talk about technical terms. So stop me anytime. So the summary, we already spoke about the summary, and we want to start with a short presentation of the idea of Industry 4.0. Maybe you're already familiar with the Industry 4.0, but let me try to summarize the main concept connected with the Industry 4.0, which in the case of Procurement 4.0 are applied for procurement, the function of procurement. Industry 4.0. It talks about smart organization. And I'm sure that you might get offended because I'm using the word smart organization, saying maybe now your organization is not smart, not at all, in the sense that I think that you're working already in smart organization, but with Industry 4.0, we want to see if it is possible to find a game changer, something which can be much more effective, especially with the customers. People talk about customer satisfaction. I tend to talk about customer delight, in the sense that we do want to delight our customer, because they are our salary. I mean, that's the way that we get the money, and without them we will not go on. Industry 4.0 is characterized also by the fact that they want to do everything real time, so in a collaborative way, and we will see what does this mean from a practical point of view. So the first aspect that I already mentioned before is the fact that Industry 4.0 puts the customer at the center stage. It's a customer-centered organization. It's a customer-centered approach. And personalization is one of the reasons why it was Industry 4.0 was introduced. Because, I mean, with the competition which is growing, with the also prices which are changing and going up in a certain number of cases, the way to win with respect to the competition is by personalization, by customization. In other words, I mean, and this applies to the entire company. Since a long time, we are talking about the total quality management, but this applies also from the point of view of innovation. So the innovation requested by Industry 4.0 should apply to the entire organization, not just one part of it. The main idea is personalization, customization in a massive way. How can we customize in a massive way? How can we satisfy the customer in a massive way, even if each customer is a different person with different needs, with different requirements, with different culture, attitude, and so forth. That is the challenge that we have. And I think that one of the tools which allows to change the game in respect of this aspect is Industry 4.0. Then you might say, but Bernardo, customization is important, but maybe this is more something which touch the design, the engineering department or the marketing department, but not so much operation, not so much procurement. That's not true, in the sense that procurement is the way to feed the rest of the organization with the components, the services, the raw material that they need. And take into account that when we are talking about procurement, we're talking about a function which tends to cover between 40 and 80% of the total cost of the production. Yes, I said between 40 and 80% of the production cost. So as you can imagine, I mean, you can change the company, but if you don't take into account that also procurement needs to change, at the end you are losing the opportunity of impacting on between 40 and 80% of the production, the operational cost. So in this way, I mean, that is the reason why procurement is important for Industry 4.0. It will change manufacturing, but not only. It's true that the introduction of Industry 4.0 was done for manufacturing organization, but over time, it has been expanded in other sectors, especially in services. I'll give you an example in the sense that one of my book, which has been published recently, is Banking 5.0. It's one step ahead of Banking 4.0, but it applies the concept of Industry 5.0 in that case, but it could apply also the concept of Industry 4.0 to the banking industry, but to any other service organization. So it will change manufacturing, but it will change all type of services. It's information technology is important, absolutely. Information technology is important to implement the Industry 4.0 transformation, but not only. If you ask me, do you have some business case of where Industry 4.0 did not work? The answer is yes, I do. And the reason is very simple, in the sense that these companies, this organization, which started to implement Industry 4.0 or simply Procurement 4.0, thought that it was enough to buy a computer program to do a computer transformation. That was not enough. I keep always saying that in any transformation, it's necessary to consider at least 4 aspects. First of all, processes. Second, and maybe even more important, people. So you need to change processes to do an Industry 4.0 transformation, but not only processes, but also people. Because as you can imagine, if you change something in terms of the way that you produce, the way that you manage your company, it is necessary to involve people. And that has been forgotten in a certain number of cases. Third, partner. If it is true what I said before, that 40 to 80% of the cost of the operation costs are coming from from partners, from supply, from product, raw material, services that you buy. As you can imagine, I mean, if you want to change it, it's necessary to change also together with the partners, because otherwise you're losing a big chunk of your potential savings. But let's go on and how Industry 4.0 was born. That's interesting because normally people tend to think that innovation is coming mainly from the Americas, I mean, from the North, from the United States, from Canada, and so on and so forth. In the case of Industry 4.0, that's not true. It was born in Germany, and the year was around 2011. Why it was born in Germany? And the reason was very simple, in the sense that in Germany, but I might say all over Europe, people were feeding the crunch of new technology, new models which were coming from the United States. So they wanted to react in some way. And that is the reason why at the Hanover Fair in Germany, this concept was used for the first time. We want to develop industry in a certain direction, which we will call Industry 4.0. In the following year, Bosch, the industrial company, the German industrial company, the multinational, then defined some guidelines for implementing Industry 4.0. Which, and we should see the main concept in the next slide. But essentially, the main idea was to how do we need to change to satisfy the customer? How can we react more quickly to the need of personalization, customization? But we said Industry 4.0, this means that there were some previous industry, Industry 1.0, Industry 2.0, Industry, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's true. The first industrial revolution was born in UK, in England, back at the end of the 18th century, at the end of 1700s. At a certain point, until then, all the operations were done essentially manually. But then there was the introduction of the first mechanical loom. That changed the world because it allowed to mechanize production, making it independently of human work alone. But it was a complementing way on respect to the human labor. The introduction of the mechanical loom and the engine, let's say, which later spread in the transportation field with the electric train, with the steam engine, and so on and so forth. So that was the change of a real industrial revolution, which changed the way that the organization set them up. But then at the beginning of the 20th century, there was another revolution, which was born essentially out of the introduction of the electrical energy. Thomas Edison was one of the pioneers in this respect. And once again, there was a completely change in the industrial world, thanks to the fact that with the electrical energy, it was possible to automatize a certain number of activity, which until then were done essentially by human person, or maybe in some cases by some mechanical. But electrical energy was interesting because it did not help only in automating engines, but it was impacting the entire society. which from then onward, it was lightened thanks to the electrical energy, changing the way that cities were organized, changing also the industrial with the mass production. It's the time where the Ford T was introduced, which was the birth of a transportation transformation, which was enormous, as you can imagine. And this brought the expansion of the cities, for instance, which was rather important. And then, not many years ago, I would say around, let's say, the 1970s and 80s, the computer was introduced. Another general solution, not only useful in one field, but in any field. The computer brought the third industrial revolution, Industry 3.0, which was based essentially on the computer. And the computer spread in a quick time, in a much less time than it was required by the previous revolution, spread, and right now it's sitting on any desk of any office in the world. I mean, it has introduced a real game changer. Finally, we arrived to the fourth industrial revolution, based essentially on the cell phone, based essentially on the robot, the automation, much more advanced with respect to what was before. And we are now in the era of Industry 4.0. And at the end of this presentation, we will try to share with you what will be the next industrial revolution and on what it will be based. But for the time being, let's stop at the fourth industrial revolution, based essentially on the introduction of the cell phone, which has changed once again the world. But what is at the basis of Industry 4.0? What has happened in the past 40 years, 50 years, it is that on one side, there was a roadmap for implementation of automation in the offices. So there was the introduction of a mainframe computer, then later the introduction of the personal computer, then very general application called ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, were introduced to automate the work in the offices. Then the web appeared, and then other technologies appeared. So there was a stream of automation in the offices. And that was going on and progressing very quickly and spreading the automation of the offices in a very large way. And that was the kingdom of the ICT, the information and the communication technology. What was happening on the shop floor? On the shop floor in the factories, it was happening a similar development of automation of the tools, automation of the machine, automation of the lines, production line, assembly line. Initially with the introduction of DDC equipment, later with the logical controller, then the field bus, the robot, which started to appear. So see the strange situation. In the offices, there was a stream of automation. In the shop floor, there was a stream of automation, and they were going in parallel. Industry 4.0 is the combination of the two. In other words, I mean, yes, ERP, the the big computer can produce a industrial schedule, an industrial project. But then it was necessary that somebody introduce the required schedule into the machine tool in the shop floor. Industry 4.0 is the combination of the two, the interaction of the two. Thanks to what? Thanks to the internet. But now we are not talking anymore about the global internet, trying to combine people, making easy for people to interact and changing documents and so forth. Now we are talking that inside the industry, the stream of office automation will combine and automatically exchange to an internal network based on internet with the machine which are working in the shop floor. You see, that is the big change. The big change is that the two-stream automation on one side in the office, the other side in the shop floor, now they can talk with each other, they can interact without the need of intervention of somebody looking at the screen and instructing the machine in the floor to do what is the next step of the schedule, production schedule. But the combination of the two, which is not only from the office to the shop floor, but it's also true the other way around. Because since the machine in the shop floor were automated, they could send through an internal internet commands, data in such a way that the ERP, this application in the office, could get automatically the information on the progress, on the advancement of the production, and then could take action if there was something which was not doing correctly. I hope that I've been able to tell you, I mean, what is Industry 4.0? Industry 4.0 was the combination, the interaction, the simultaneous thing working of the automation in the office with the automation in the shop floor. In Europe, it's called Industry 4.0. Of course, in the meantime, also in other countries, this kind of interaction started to spread. And in the US, for instance, it's called Industrial Internet. And GE, for instance, with some advanced product like Predix, is doing also the same kind of interfacing. In Japan, it's called Smart Factory. But the concept is essentially the same. The name changed, but the concept is the same. Bring together, let them automatically interact the office automation with the shop floor automation. Let me pause 1 second and let me ask if it's clear what is Industry 4.0. I would like to hear some voice. Was I clear? Was I talking too fast? I know that you are on mute, but you can unmute. I'm asking a question.
Professor Bernardo?
Yes.
Sorry, perhaps I didn't catch we didn't catch the question.
My question
I
is,
dropped off and then I dropped back, came back on.
Is it clear what is Industry 4.0 in terms of combination, interaction between the office automation and the shop floor automation. Is it clear?
Okay, I think you're asking I would say yes from my side, but perhaps people from the room, I shall assume that it is, unless somebody wants to ask some questions.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's well explained. I think it was clear to me.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mark.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your intervention. Yeah. Because as I said before, sometimes I tend to go too fast. So my concern was that I was talking too fast.
No, we're following you well.
Okay. Okay. So then at this point, let's zoom a little bit into Industry 4.0 to see some of the solutions which are used by Industry 4.0. This is a complex slide, I admit it, but it tries to map from a solution point of view the aspect of Industry 4.0 which are relevant and automatic, what I call the critical success factors. Which are the critical success factors which can assure the success of Procurement 4.0 or Industry 4.0? And you can see that in this table, there are 8 different words, which, by the way, for symmetry, all of them start with C, which, in my opinion, are the success factors of the implementation of the concept I mentioned before, of the integration between the office world and the shop floor world. Controllership. That is essential in the sense that, as you can imagine, this controllership is the way to assure that these 2 different worlds will talk with each other. On the other side, communication is also fundamental. Taking account that internet used inside the factory, inside the industry, not only for connecting with the outside world, but also inside the company, is fundamental to assure the success of Industry 4.0. Collaboration is also important, because it's true that Industry 4.0 has automatic exchange of data and information between the machine tool, the robot in the shop floor, and the office application. But as you can imagine, it's essential, the collaboration of the tools and also the collaboration of the people. Cybernetics, certainly, cybernetics is important because it's that the technology is important for the implementation. The connection between the machinery and the mainframe computer, or the main computer, the server, is also very important. The comprehension, in other words, I mean, the fact that you don't want only to implement automation, but you want to understand what does it mean for the company. And then there are two other aspects, which once again, I try to call with the word which start with C: command and confidence. Command, what does it mean? It means that there must be a vision by the top management of the need to implement Industry 4.0, to do this integration. There must be some sponsorship at the top level of the company, of the project. And that is what I call command. But watch out, because it's necessary also the trust in this solution. You are connecting the office world with the shop floor, operation world. It is essential that this connection works all the time. So you cannot afford problem connected with the reliability of the machinery. Not only, but you must protect this Industry 4.0 implementation from outside hackers. So cybersecurity becomes even more important, because it's not only necessary to assure the access from outside world, not only and anymore only to the office world, but now hackers could penetrate inside the company, acting on the machinery, taking control of the machinery, or destroying the machinery. That is the big danger. And take into account that traditionally, especially in the operation technology, people did not take very much care of protecting the controller, the logical controller, protecting the machine, because they were isolated. The machine tools were isolated from the external world, so it was not possible from external hackers to penetrate them. But now they can, because since the office world is connected via internet to the world application, to the world network, of course, through the office, the hackers could penetrate up to the machinery of and create big damage. Think what happened with this oil pipe in California. Some hackers penetrated the machinery which was controlling the flow of gas from Alaska to the United States. And it was a ransomware because they wanted money. And I imagine that at the end they did get some money, because after 3 days of outage, it was necessary to restart. And the hackers in that case did not only stole email address, customer detail, stuff like that. No, they stopped the machine which were controlling the pipeline of the oil. So as you can see, the danger of Industry 4.0 is the fact that external actors could penetrate the application and thus create quite a few damage. So that is the reason of the confidence, which I call, which is also a critical success factor. Confidence that the world of Industry 4.0 is protected from external inside. Okay, then going back to what has happened, you can see that in this way there is a continuous transformation. That is another difference with respect to the past, in the sense that now transformation takes place every single day, I would say, or almost every single day. I mean, and but which are the platforms? We talked about the processes, the people, but now let's talk a little bit about the platform. Which are the basic platform in support of Procurement 4.0? Well, the first one, there's a long list. I don't have time to go through all of them. So I will just concentrate to the 4 most important platforms: Internet of Things, 3D printing, big data analytics, and cloud computing. Not necessary in this order. IoT, what is Internet of Things? Internet of Things is sensors which are applied to components, to product, to parts, to machine, and can automatically capture a certain number of data, such as temperature or pressure or duration, and capturing this data directly from the machine, they can communicate with the central office application and allow a maintenance, which is not anymore a maintenance corrective, correcting a fault when it will happen, but helping to predict in the future what could happen to the machine and take necessary action to protect the machine. So as you can imagine, this IoT, this possibility to put sensors which can capture the data and transfer this data automatically to the mainframe, to the main computers, so the server of the organization, that is a way to change the world, because there is not anymore somebody which needs to enter data manually into the application, but they are captured at the very, very origin of the issues, of the problem. Another interesting platform at the base of Industry 4.0 and Procurement 4.0 is the RPA, the Robotic Processing Automation. Traditionally, there have been IT people which were writing programs for the computer to do what it was necessary to do with that application. With RPA, the main idea is to have a robot, but not a physical robot, but a virtual robot which could take the data from one application and move it automatically to another application. Take the sensors data which have been taken from the machine in the shop floor and transfer them automatically with some minor manipulation, simple manipulation to the application. RPA, Robotic Process Automation, is the use of virtual robot, not physical robot, but programs which do something similar to what was doing the person before, the operator before. But yeah. Question?
I think it was just, they were off mute by mistake. Apologies. Please continue, Prof.
Okay, thank you. But what is robotic automation relevant is something to do repeatable task, but with a very simple programming, not done by programmers, computer geeks, or no, but it can be done automatically. It's a robot, but it's a virtual robot, a way to repeat tasks, for instance. Reduce the error rate, which is another objective. Improve standardization of process workflow, or make a straight-through process. In other words, I mean, without the human intervention to move data from one part of the company to another part of the company, doing it automatically. And RPA is one of the very interesting application connected with for instance, with procurement, because in the case of procurement, very often you need to extract data from one part and make it available to another application. But this can be done with the virtual robot, which will read the data in one of the application, or the internet. from the outside world, and we transfer this information to another computer application, which, for instance, needs to do vendor selection, but automatically capturing from internet the data on the potential vendors of a certain product and transferring to the ERP, which can do then a selection of the best vendor for that specific product. And now we come to artificial intelligence. If you ask me what will be Industry 5.0, it will be the world of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I call it, I don't like to call it artificial intelligence. I prefer to call it augmented intelligence. In other words, it's a way for operators of a company to improve the intelligence, add to the intelligence, make it even more smarter. And that is exactly what AI do. In other words, hello?
Apologies.
no.
Vinolia, could you please put Peter on mute for us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so artificial intelligence is essentially a way to let machine work, process data as a human could do. That is important because take the example of, for instance, of vendor selection. A program of artificial intelligence can read the data, take into account a certain number of criteria, and based on this criteria and on the experience of the past, to produce a suggestion in terms of selection of the vendors. And this is an application which are now becoming more and more common in the company. Another application does a different thing. For instance, can help to do fraud management. You know, procurement is an important function, but since it moves quite a bit of money, there might be the danger that some operator might be corrupted. In that situation, to discover the corruption is not easy, but there are programs of artificial intelligence with automatically analyze the data of procurement, the orders, the request for proposal, the request for price, and so on and so forth, the deliveries, the quality of the deliveries, then can automatically process all this data and eventually could discover some fraud which is going on. And we're not talking about rocket science, we're talking about a program which can be bought commercially to analyze the way that procurement is working. I mean, and there are applications of artificial intelligence. Finally, always talking about artificial intelligence, there are the so-called smart contract. A contract is an obligation between parties which include some action during the life of the contract. But now, if a contract, rather than being just written on paper and signed by the authorized person, becomes a program, this program could automatically trigger some action. For instance, if a smart program would be connected with the acceptance of the reception of the goods in the company from the application which manage the reception of new delivery of goods, this information could go automatically to the program and trigger the payment of those products which have just arrived in the company according to the rule of the contract. Payment at 30 days, at 45 days, I mean, or stuff like that. So this smart contract, which, as I said before, are putting the contract as program which automatically would take some action when some other action is done, then the management of the contract becomes much more easier. On the other side, well before this smart contract, you might use a program which automatically writes new program, taking into account new delivery which are planned. And once again, this program can check if all the clauses are correctly written and correspond to the clauses for that specific procurement. I mean, it's, if you want, they are similar to the word checking that the word processor do. I mean, where they check that we are using the correct spelling of the word, the correct grammatical form of the sentences. These programs are already included in the word processor. I mean, but they are program of artificial intelligence. But think of this program not to do spelling correction or grammatical correction, but verifying the clauses which has been included in the contract on respect to the correct way of stating these clauses. And this is another important change, because at that point you do not depend anymore from outside legal companies which will review your contract, and maybe they are not aware of the specific concern that you might have with some supplier, which you need them as a supplier, but you are concerned that they may not be respectful of the clauses of the contract. Then you must write the contract in the right way. So in that case, once again, I mean, you have this artificial intelligence program to write almost automatically the contract. Okay. And then 3D printing is another enormous development. 3D printing is printing components, parts of, or even entire product, just with a printer, like we use today a printer to print a document. But if the printer can print a part, a component, it will be possible to automatically building product. So it uses dust, as you can imagine, putting together dust, guided by lasers, to print in 3 dimensions the component or the product that you want to do. This is the basis, for instance, of customization, because I mean, since each product will be built by this printer, you can introduce some change for a specific customer without big effort. And once again, Industry 4.0 will transfer automatically to the machine tool what has been designed using CAD or CAM machinery. So another enormous transformation from cutting out from a block of steel to build your component, to print that component by putting together the dust guided by laser and forming the product without any waste. Because the problem of current way to produce components of parts, metallic parts or components, is that you start with a block and then you take out something. With the 3D printing, you don't take out anything. You put something to build your component, your product. So of course, I mean, it makes sense, especially for small production, because for very large lot, it does make sense to use the old type of machine. But for small components, which is exactly what will happen for the objective of customizing the production. And finally, and I don't want to invest too much time more, data explosion. Data is the richness of the companies. But unfortunately, companies are not using data. Take the example of banks, for instance. Banks know all of us because with the credit card, with the movement of the current account, they know all of us. But do they use all this kind of information? In a very limited way. But they could do personalized marketing. They could do customization of their financial product. And very few organizations still, really financial organizations still use this data. So on this respect, I mean, the use of data is extremely important. And it's the way that the world will change. With the IoT, with this sensor which capture automatically data, then, as you can imagine, you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's the future. Sorry, I'm almost at the end of my conversation. Procurement 4.0 is also use cloud computing, using the internet to exchange data in real time with the vendors. And this makes sense particularly for important vendors where you want to connect with them for request for proposal, for ordering, for invoicing payment, for reception acknowledgement, and you want to use cloud computing, which is another important technology. I would say that's all. I mean, I don't want I can give you some example of implementation of Procurement 4.0, which we have done with a multinational in the food sector. We don't have time to go through every single line, but savings in the back office equal to 89%. Yes, savings 89%. So, I mean, of course, I mean, this is possible when there is simple work to be done and repetitive work and so on and so forth. I mean, because when you move to front office needs more creativity and interpersonal skill, the kind of savings that you can get are much smaller, 70%. But at the transactional level, you might save savings of almost 80–90% of the current job. Then the question is, there are two questions. The first one is, but what do you do with all this manpower? Well, take into account that in some specific jobs, to have very skilled manpower is not easy. Yeah, of course, I mean, if you do simple repetitive work, maybe it's you can find the person, but for highly skilled personnel, it is much more difficult. So this kind of opportunities with the Industry 4.0 and Procurement 4.0 tend to elevate the work which is done by the workers, and the workers which are redundant can be used to do some other type of work or simply increase the production, which is also very important. And that is one aspect. So, but out of this concern about all this automation is forgetting the human person. That is the basis of what is called Industry 5.0. We can talk another time about Industry 5.0, but essentially it tends to overcome some, let's say, consequences of Industry 4.0 in terms of redundancy of workers, in terms of poor work in some cases, in terms of resistance to the change. You see, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, due to the war in some part of the world, it is becoming much more important for companies to do resilience of their activity. And finally, take into account of the environment, sustainability. That is the important activity which is becoming more important to do sustainable procurement. We don't have time now, we talk about sustainable procurement, which is a component of Industry 5.0, which is based on these three pillars. Human centricity, take into account and try to improve as much as possible the type of work which is done, not only automating it, but making it more effective, intelligent. Second, resilience. Make your organization, the entire organization, including procurement, more resilient to external factors which might change dramatically, as it has been with the pandemic, which from one day to another has emptied the offices for the reason of protecting the person from the virus. But once again, how do you make your company more resilient? The third aspect is sustainability. How can you make your company more sustainable from an environment point of view, from a social point of view, from an economic point of view? And that will be the future of Industry 5.0. I've spoken quite a bit, and I would really like to have some question to deal with in the minutes that we are left. Questions?
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm going to open the floor for any questions that they may have. I've just looked at the chat as well. There are no questions in the chat except for a request for your slides, which we've advised how to get them. But from the floor, are there any questions? Yes, Mark, please take yourself off mic.
Thank you, Ayanda, and thanks, Prof, for your presentation. That was very insightful. I'm curious about a few things. The one is about the cost of these kinds of AI solution. I mean, I see that it can have a huge impact on savings. The other thing I'm wondering is the development of the AI solution. I mean, I expect that could be quite, yeah, I don't know, like difficult or complex to develop the solution, or are these solutions quite intelligent themselves? And I don't know, are they almost maybe easy to design? And then the third thing I'd like to ask is, are there any governments around the world that are looking at this and adopting, you know, this sort of AI or industrial 4.0 kind of solutions? Because a lot of the governments that I've sort of had exposure to are quite scared of digital solutions. They don't really embrace them. So yeah, I'm just curious if there are maybe some stories of more progressive public sectors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And by the way, very interesting question. I must say, you are hitting some of the most important points that we did not have time to touch upon before. Let's start with the first one, cost. You're absolutely right, in the sense that when I've mentioned some savings, I should have done net savings rather than just savings. In other words, I mean, you can discuss about what you can save by the introduction of Industry 4.0, but you are also very, very much interested, how much does it cost? That's a very good question, but cost of technology is going down, is going down, I don't want to say dramatically, but it's going down. As an example, internet. Internet before was to communicate, telecommunication costs very, very much. Now, today, with 50 euro, you can buy a very good connection via cable, optical cable. So costs are going down, take into account. So this kind of development was not possible before, but now it's more and more possible. And that is the first question. The second, we will not more time to answer. The second one is also very important, saying AI. Is it difficult to implement AI? Well, I don't have time, but I can tell you, and I will send you one slide from another presentation. AI simplify quite a bit development with respect to the traditional way to write programs. Because to write programs, you must know everything about what you want to automate. With artificial intelligence, there are programs which are called machine learning, which learn on your behalf. So they are very effective. Third question, also very important, which what is government is doing? Well, taking the account that, at the basis of, somebody starting to call me, but at the basis of Industry 4.0, there was the German government. So the basis was for the government, which was trying to introduce innovation, and they did, and that was very good. On the other side, I mean, and then really the last message that I can give you is the fact that this solution must be controlled, and they are more and more controlled. And especially in Europe, there are big progresses in terms of controlling the development, especially of artificial intelligence, which might be rather dangerous, even if it's particularly interesting. Sorry, I need to leave you, but you have my number, you have WhatsApp, send me messages, do what you want. And I will try to get in connection with you some other time. Thank you to everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Prof. Bernardo.
Yeah, I must leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, but.
So thank you everybody for participating in today's session. There has been a request on the chat that we make the slides available. Vinolia has put in the chat in terms of where you can get the slides. It's basically from our ISCA office, and we can, if you just send us an email, we can make the slides available. Prof. Bernardo also indicated that he would include one or two other slides that would talk to the question that Mark asked with regards to, the costs of implementing AI and the costs of just in terms of of technology. So we'll also ensure from the ISCA office that we get those two slides that he mentioned, and we'll also include them in the pack. What we will ask is that you just contact us via email so that we know that you do have an interest in the slides. And furthermore, as indicated, we do record these sessions. Therefore, if you'd like to get a recording, maybe you joined us a little bit late, you can also contact us, and we will make the recording available to you.
Okay.
With that, I just want to open the floor if there are any other questions, because as Prof indicated, we are all specialists in our field, and we may also be able to answer the questions, or if you would like to share some learnings with regards to Procurement 4.0. So I'll just open the floor if there's any questions or comments. If there are none, I would like to really thank you with regards to joining us. As I said at the beginning, it's going to be almost like a speed dating session of our game changer, where we'll be having, it'll be for an hour. And it is now 4:10. So I want to thank you very much for participating in the game changer. And not just today, but for the full year. What we also like to welcome you, because we will be continuing with our game changers in the new year as well. And if there are topics that you would like us to, to consider, speakers that you would like us to bring forward, game changers in our industry, also please email the ISCA office with those suggestions of speakers or even topics that we will then weave into our sessions for next year. Really welcome that as well. With that, I'd just really like to say thank you again. Also, thank you to the back office, Vinolia and team, who've really been holding the fort down for our game changers, and also managing to get really interesting and inspiring speakers. Really, thank you very much. And also thank you to our president, Professor Ambe, who without him, we wouldn't be able to have these sessions as well. Colleagues in the industry, game changers yourselves, thank you very much, and really have a great afternoon or evening wherever you are across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ayanda, and bye to everyone.
Bye, Vinolia.